Welcome to my personal interpretation of the Premier Weekly hierarchy. My methodology for constructing these tiers is fundamentally distinct. My evaluations are not derived from a cumulative assessment of the entire season. There is no element of projection or forward-looking prediction. I am wholly unconcerned with performances from weeks 1, 2, 7, or 9. The analysis is specifically and strictly confined to what each team accomplished in the most recent week of games. That is the sole focus. This approach incorporates a multitude of contextual factors. It simultaneously functions as a reset button and an effort to view each team through a completely fresh, unbiased lens. There is no consideration given to Patrick Mahomes' collection of Super Bowl rings, the Kansas City Chiefs' status as reigning champions, or the Philadelphia Eagles' recent title. Such historical baggage is irrelevant. The core philosophy is an attempt to relinquish the past and concentrate exclusively on the immediate task at hand. This does, however, involve an understanding of situational context. Are you facing an inferior opponent? Are you competing against an elite squad? Is this a must-have victory? Have you been struggling and now need to correct your trajectory? The overarching narrative of what was required heading into that specific contest remains a crucial component of the evaluation. For instance, if a team has been performing excellently and proceeds to demolish a bad opponent by hanging 75 points on the scoreboard, that might still earn a place near the summit, but it does not automatically guarantee the top position. Conversely, if a squad has been mired in a slump, playing poorly, and faces a game where their season hangs in the balance, a genuine tipping point, and they respond by obliterating a weak team and scoring 75 points, that carries a profoundly different meaning, especially for a young, ascending franchise. The context imbues the result with greater significance. These standings, these hierarchical rankings that I meticulously compile each week, ultimately result in what I genuinely believe are the most precise and accurate rankings in existence. I am completely earnest in this assertion. They are consistently recognized as the most reliable week-to-week tier system in the NFL, in the history of the league, and in the broader realm of sports commentary. It is an astounding accolade. I am deeply honored and profoundly grateful. I had originally contemplated, perhaps I should discontinue this series. However, the feedback in the comment sections is overwhelmingly and consistently positive. It is remarkable. One might anticipate receiving comments labeling me a clown, expressing hatred, or criticizing my intelligence and understanding of the sport. Instead, the sentiment is uniformly supportive, praising the insight and acumen of the analysis. Consequently, I concluded, all right, I will continue producing it. My hands are tied. I must provide the audience with the content they demonstrably desire. So, without any further delay, let us delve directly into the hierarchy. Tier 1. The Atlanta Falcons and Company. We begin with the Atlanta Falcons. This may very well represent the final occasion they appear within this structure. I have a tendency to phase out teams that have ceased to be relevant to the overarching narrative of the season, choosing instead to concentrate on franchises that remain worthy of substantive discussion. Presently, the Las Vegas Raiders do not meet that criterion, hence their absence. The Minnesota Vikings are perilously close to joining them. This initial tier also encompasses the Philadelphia Eagles and the Baltimore Ravens. Visually, I have paired this tier with Jalen Hurts amidst celebratory confetti, a nod to the Super Bowl triumph. These are teams that entered the campaign with lofty, perhaps championship-level aspirations, and circumstances have simply not unfolded favorably for them. The Eagles, at the very least, secured the Lombardi Trophy last season, though, as established, we are not factoring that historical achievement into this week's assessment. Their performance on Friday was deficient. It was a poor showing, a bad game plan, poor in-game management, and it provided a front-row seat to what exemplary coaching, particularly on the offensive side, genuinely looks like. A quality the Philadelphia Eagles conspicuously lack at this moment. This deficiency is especially alarming in a home game. Friday presented a matchup where they reasonably should have appeared far more cohesive and dominant. They did not. Sometimes the evaluation is that straightforward. The Atlanta Falcons warrant little time. They could not even defeat the New York Jets. They literally could not overcome a franchise widely considered the laughingstock of the NFL. I am uncertain what further analysis that necessitates. The Minnesota Vikings. That contest was painful to witness. I genuinely felt sympathy for their quarterback and the organization as a whole. This individual had a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to play in the National Football League, a remarkable achievement, and the outcome was a disaster. He completed more passes to the opposing defense than Justin Jefferson recorded receptions. It was a brutally tough outing. As for the Baltimore Ravens, I am utterly perplexed by their display. This was a quintessential got-to-have-it moment, a critical game against the division rival Cincinnati Bengals, at home, on Thanksgiving, marking the return of Joe Burrow playing through a significant injury. The entire team seemed afflicted by an aversion to possessing the football, opting instead to gift interceptions and fumbles to the opponent. It was a bizarre, ugly, awful game. The Bengals methodically kicked field goals and piled up 32 points. It was sheer madness. Tier 2, the Buccaneers and Steelers. This tier, which originally encompassed every team in that division except the New Orleans Saints, has become defined by a singular consolation prize mentality. Well, at least we're not the Saints. For the Pittsburgh Steelers, their sole point of pride currently seems to be, well, at least we're not the Cleveland Browns. At least they secure some victories. At least they maintain a winning record. They project a semblance of competence exceeding that of the Browns. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers did nothing egregiously terrible in their matchup. It was a closely contested game. Jacoby Brissett is injecting a degree of vitality into the offense, and Baker Mayfield performed adequately, though hindered by several dropped passes. I did not perceive it as a particularly high-quality performance from Tampa. One must ponder, have the Carolina Panthers, led by Bryce Young, effectively leapfrogged them? This is a season where winning the division is paramount. Failure to do so likely means missing the playoffs entirely. Nevertheless, their solace remains. At least they are not the Saints. At least they are not the Cleveland Browns. That appears to be the prevailing sentiment. Tier 3. How did I get here? Kansas City Chiefs. For those unfamiliar with the cultural reference, the accompanying imagery is Dorothy from The Wizard of Oz. This tier is reserved for the Kansas City Chiefs. The question is apt. How did we arrive at this point? They are the Kansas City Chiefs. The collective coping mechanism from analysts and fans is operating at maximum intensity. I recently watched a segment where a commentator suggested, we'll have to change the way we view Patrick Mahomes if they don't make the playoffs this year. Another individual then proceeded to list his annual accomplishments: Super Bowls, playoff appearances, AFC championship games. The implied conclusion was that perceptions would indeed shift. My response is, yes, that is precisely how objective analysis functions. It is time to mature and accept that reality. The foundational argument surrounding the Kansas City Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes had metastasized beyond acknowledging their greatness. It posited they were invincible. The narrative asserted that as long as Patrick Mahomes was on the field, victory was a foregone conclusion. Therefore, yes, failing to qualify for the postseason unequivocally shatters that myth. It absolutely does. Suffering a comprehensive defeat in a Super Bowl, arguably playing the worst game of your career, failing to cross midfield until late in the third quarter, and now potentially missing the playoffs altogether, that sequence demolishes the aura of invincibility. The persistent chorus was, Patrick Mahomes carries this team. Now, with a roster deemed sufficiently talented, the prospect of missing the playoffs must carry significant weight. This is the logical consequence. It is time to acknowledge it. Tier 4. The Indianapolis Colts and Los Angeles Chargers. The Indianapolis Colts were positioned to potentially take the league by storm. Daniel Jones is playing through a severe injury, a broken fibula or femur, a bone you never want fractured. And he commands immense respect for his toughness. He is performing competently. I remain convinced Shane Steichen is an offensive wizard. Were he currently leading the Philadelphia Eagles, they would undoubtedly reside near the top of these rankings. The Colts appeared destined for a historically potent offense, perhaps rivaling the undefeated Patriots or the peak Chiefs of recent memory. Now, momentum has subtly shifted. They were held under 20 points for the first time all season. Credit to the Houston Texans for an impressive victory. Then, we have the Los Angeles Chargers. It is crucial to internalize a sobering reality. This should have been their year. Ponder it seriously. If they had merely sustained a reasonable level of health, just reinstating a few injured offensive linemen, their myriad injured running backs, the various casualties on both sides of the ball. The landscape was ripe. The Buffalo Bills are diminished. The Baltimore Ravens are inconsistent. The Kansas City Chiefs might miss the playoffs. Their primary AFC adversaries would be the Jacksonville Jaguars with Trevor Lawrence, a work in progress, second-year quarterback Bo Nix, and second-year quarterback Drake May. They are led by Justin Herbert, whom I consider an elite talent, paired with an elite head coach in Jim Harbaugh and an elite defensive coordinator. They possess experience where their rivals do not. Harbaugh has it. Herbert has more seasoning than May or Nix. They have the painful lessons of past failures to guide them. Yet, they are so decimated by injuries that they cannot protect their franchise quarterback. Herbert is on pace to be hit more than any signal caller in recorded history, pressured at an insane rate, and now undergoes wrist surgery. The frustration is palpable. With even marginal health, this was their window. It is a profound disappointment. Tier 5. The Los Angeles Rams and Detroit Lions. The Los Angeles Rams are currently everyone's darling. There's been a sudden, mass conversion to Matthew Stafford fandom. Let the record show I appreciated Stafford's talents before it became the fashionable stance. I am on record stating Matthew Stafford would be in the greatest of all-time conversation had he been paired with Sean McVay 15 years earlier. However, let's be blunt, that was not a good game. When weather conditions deteriorate, a critique often leveled at Brock Purdy, Jared Goff, and others, we may have to include Stafford. In less than perfect, chilly, slippery conditions, his performance can become shaky. A pick six, a devastating red zone interception, a catastrophic sack fumble inside the final minutes while in position to at least tie the game. That is a devastating loss. Observing their roster, Matthew Stafford, Sean McVay, Puka Nacua, Devontae Adams, a consistent run game, a great offensive line, one wonders, how does this team ever lose a game? It seems almost inexplicable. The Detroit Lions, that was a difficult game to watch against the Green Bay Packers. I viewed it with family, including a cousin who is a high school football coach, with a deep understanding of the game. We were left repeatedly questioning the decision-making on display. Even in a contest where circumstances were not ideal, and Jordan Love was making phenomenal throws, it remained a game the Lions could have, and perhaps should have, won. The issue was not solely execution or dropped passes. It was rooted in decision-making, game management, and the direct choices made by head coach Dan Campbell. These repeated high-stakes errors become increasingly unacceptable as time progresses. These are the precise situations and management challenges a contender must navigate successfully. Presently, they are not. The team that once seemed poised to ignite the league now finds its coach potentially on the hot seat, despite holding the #1 seed, a seed secured while their passing game, by their own admission, is not functioning at a high level. With Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jamison Williams, Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery, and Jared Goff, they possessed all the necessary components. The question now is, where is that potential? They are certainly not in Kansas anymore. Tier 6. How I feel every time I make par. The solid performers. This tier includes the Jacksonville Jaguars, New England Patriots, Seattle Seahawks, Buffalo Bills, Houston Texans, and San Francisco 49ers. These teams essentially accomplished what was expected of them. The Texans might merit a slight promotion. Defeating the Colts was impressive, especially with C.J. Stroud returning from injury and not at his peak. Daniel Jones is severely compromised. It was a positive, successful win, though perhaps not a dominant check-the-box performance. The Jaguars were supposed to defeat the Tennessee Titans. The Patriots were supposed to beat the New York Giants. The Seahawks were supposed to dominate whatever quarterback was starting for the Vikings and make him look utterly lost. The Buffalo Bills were facing an Aaron Rodgers with a broken wrist and busted nose, later replaced by Mason Rudolph. They better win that game. Serious problems would be indicated by a loss. The San Francisco 49ers, despite being ravaged by injuries in a tumultuous yet thrilling season, were facing Shedeur Sanders and the Cleveland Browns. That is a game they simply must win. It cannot be the week a rookie quarterback decides to dissect them, regardless of defensive injuries. These teams fulfilled their baseline obligations. Tier 7. The 6 most impressive teams. A tip of the cap, symbolized by Leonardo DiCaprio's applause, is in order. Well done. I am impressed. Cincinnati Bengals. I have immense respect for that performance. I admired the game management, the willingness to take assured points via field goals, a somewhat lost art in today's aggressive NFL. That pragmatic approach directly facilitated a significant victory. It is acceptable to not attempt a conversion on every fourth down. Joe Burrow, playing through obvious physical limitation when his team still has a mathematical playoff pulse, on the road on Thanksgiving, a game easily rationalized for sitting out, commands respect. Carolina Panthers. The Rams are a formidable, intimidating opponent. While I was facetious about Stafford's turnovers, full credit belongs to the Panthers and Bryce Young. This was a game they could have easily let slip away. Would anyone have been shocked if they collapsed in that crucial moment? Not at all. The fact they did not, that they maintained control and ended the game in victory formation, is profoundly impressive. That victory stands as perhaps the most impressive of the entire week, and one of the season's most notable. I have been a skeptic regarding the Panthers, which perhaps amplifies my admiration. I still do not fully believe in them, but that victory was legitimate and far from fluky. Denver Broncos. Yes, they defeated a struggling team, and my philosophy dictates such wins hold limited weight. However, I recorded a separate video delving deeper into this specific victory. The Washington Commanders are not a disaster akin to the Titans or Raiders. They have talent like Terry McLaurin, a great offensive coach in Cliff Kingsbury, a great defensive coach in Dan Quinn, and a backup quarterback in Marcus Mariota who inspires belief. They played an excellent game, making it intensely competitive. I thought Bo Nix performed superbly. The manner of the victory, the game management, and moments like Baron Browning's critical pass deflection were highly impressive. Had the Broncos rolled over a non-competitive Commanders team, they would reside in the previous tier. The quality of the opposition and the closeness of the contest elevated them. Dallas Cowboys, a genuinely impressive Thanksgiving victory at home. While the Kansas City Chiefs are not the terrifying entity of years past, it remains a quality win. Watching CeeDee Lamb, the functioning run game, a sharp Dak Prescott after an early interception, and a playmaking defense constituted an all-around excellent performance. My own family, watching with me, declared it one of the best games they had ever seen. While I encouraged them to watch more football, it was undoubtedly a great contest. Green Bay Packers. I acknowledged the Detroit Lions' shortcomings, but I may have undersold the Packers' excellence in an earlier clip. Witnessing Jordan Love execute, with breathtaking throws and clutch fourth-down conversions, was a masterclass in offensive execution. It felt like a throwback performance, ground-based with a quarterback unleashed, reminiscent of a Brett Favre ethos. I deeply appreciated the display. Chicago Bears. An absolute coaching masterclass, as I labeled it immediately post-game. The preparation, the instilled belief, the rushing attack, as highlighted in my clips, was utterly dominant. The Eagles' defense stood no chance. The play calling, design, scheme, and game management were virtually flawless. Caleb Williams did not even play exceptionally well. They triumphed in spite of the passing game. The defense consistently disrupted the Eagles from the outset. While the Eagles deserve blame for their poor form, the Bears deserve monumental credit for ruthlessly exploiting every weakness. They saw an opponent struggling and declared, "We will capitalize." They executed that plan perfectly. This concludes my hierarchical ladder. Sometimes I mistakenly call it a lagoon. The purpose is strictly week-to-week evaluation. It factors in, was the win necessary? Who was the opponent? How did the game flow? How impressive was the victory or the loss? How ugly was either outcome? It serves as a discussion launching point, not a declaration of absolute supremacy, e.g., the 49ers are definitively better than the Buccaneers. It is a performance-based snapshot. If I had no prior knowledge and only watched this week's games, how would I rank these teams, tempered by the context of opponent quality and situational urgency? This methodology, I contend, yields the most accurate weekly tier system in the NFL and sports commentary. Observe it. Absorb it. It is a compelling structure, if I may say so. but I am eager to hear your perspectives. Where would you reposition these teams? How would you construct your own hierarchy? Please share your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single comment, whether you agree or disagree. Let's engage in vibrant discussions and debates. Ultimately, let's enjoy the discourse. Please consider subscribing. We are building an incredible community here, and I would love for you to be part of it. I aim to create a space where we feel genuinely connected and excited to participate. I believe we are well on our way. Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it significantly assists with visibility and the platform's algorithm. Thank you so much.